The Green Bay Packers surprised many in 2023 by making the playoffs, then winning a road shootout in Dallas in the wild card round, and then giving the 49ers everything they could handle in a 3-point road loss in the divisional round of the 2023 playoffs. The question is now, can the Green Bay Packers take the next step? Can they make the Super Bowl? Can they win it? That's what we're going to talk about here today on Rogue Football. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm your host, Jordan DeLugo. So for me, when you talk about these Green Bay Packers, it all starts with Matt LaFleur, their head coach, one of the best offensive coaches on the planet right now. This guy has adapted the Shanahan-style offense to fit Aaron Rodgers and then did it again last year to fit Jordan Love's talents. He is 56-27 as the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. He's won 3 playoff games in 5 years as the Packers head coach, despite not having the benefit of truly elite rosters for much of that time. There's been injuries. There's been the transition between Rodgers to Love. There's been a lot going on in Green Bay during his time there, but he has coached them to a 56-27 record. Really impressive, an offensive whiz. And now he did the right thing as well as a organizational leader, right? Moves on from his defensive coordinator, brought in Jeff Hafley, who brings a more attacking, downhill style approach. They're going to look to create more disruption and penetration up front with those talented defensive linemen that they have. They'll play some more man coverage in the back end. He's done plenty of single high, but he's also added and implemented a little bit more of a 2-high shell into his defensive system. Obviously, he's going to try to account for the talent that he has in Green Bay now and kind of mold this defense around what he has. But I think that they did a really smart thing, even after making the playoffs, after winning a playoff game, deciding to go in a different direction at defensive coordinator with Jeff Hafley, who has a lot of college and NFL experience as a defensive coach. So I really like what they did there. So I think they're in a great place from a coaching standpoint when you look at Matt LaFleur on the offensive side of the ball and as the head coach. You look at Jeff Hafley as the defensive coordinator, and then Rich Bisaccia, of course, as their special teams coordinator. Then you look at the roster, right? Jordan Love, what an unbelievable year. This is a guy who has pretty good overall athleticism, but what's most impressive about him is his arm elasticity, the ability to create explosives by throwing off platform, throwing from odd arm angles, and just being a playmaker. Right? He has a really talented arm. He has a really talented thrower of the football. And what Matt LaFleur did around him last year to support and cultivate what he has to build up his confidence, and then the growth that Jordan Love showed throughout the season was playing at an unbelievable level by the end of the year. This is not a precision game manager type quarterback. This is someone who can blow the game wide open with his arm talent and with his ability to convert tight window throws, to push the ball down the field, again, to throw off platform, to play make as a quarterback. Jordan Love, it feels like the sky is the limit for what he can be as a playmaker at the quarterback position right now. Then you talk about the receivers, right? Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Dontavion Wicks, the tight ends, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, 2 rookies from last year. This is a really talented group of pass catchers. There's no question about that in my mind. Jaden Reed was a player that I loved coming out of Michigan State, had a fantastic year last year for the Packers. He is so explosive, so athletic, and a guy who plays bigger than his size. I think that Christian Watson, coming off a season that was hindered by obviously dealing with lingering injuries, he has the potential in this offense with Jordan Love throwing the football to have a monster year if he can stay healthy. Then Dontavion Wicks, a guy who I really liked, similar to Jaden Reed coming out in the draft, a player who came from a program at Virginia that was not firing on all cylinders. He comes in to Green Bay and he immediately shows off the talent that he has. And then you talk about Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. They're 2 tight ends that complement each other very well. They're both talented receivers. Tucker Kraft is more of that physical guy you want to line up in line. You want Luke Musgrave moving around the formation, using that speed and length that he brings to the field. So I think that when it comes to these pass catchers, they complement each other well, and they really suit this offense. I think that Matt LaFleur will do a great job utilizing the weapons, and Jordan Love certainly as well. The offensive line, so athletic, so versatile. I feel really good about it overall. I don't think it's elite necessarily, but when you talk about these specific athletic traits and the offensive scheme with Matt LaFleur, I think this group will do well. I do. I think Jordan Morgan was a slight reach where they drafted him. I think there was some more talented overall players on the board, maybe some offensive linemen that could have helped them out as well. But he does have versatility. He has athleticism, played really well in 2023 despite coming off the ACL. So I think this is a guy that will help them overall in the running game and in pass protection. And when you talk about that running game, you move on from Aaron Jones, which obviously is disappointing, but age, injuries, they became a concern for Aaron Jones. They certainly did. You insert Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd into this running game. I think that Lloyd in outside zone is going to be super explosive, going to be fun to watch in this offense. I think Josh Jacobs will thrive in this offense, probably the most stable offensive group that's been around him as a running back in his NFL career. Do hate seeing Aaron Jones go, but especially the Minnesota Vikings, right? If you're a Green Bay Packers fan. But I think that Lloyd and Jacobs, I see the plan there, and I think it's strong, especially with the rest of this offense, this passing game. I've got to say, this team, from a talent acquisition standpoint, I've loved what they've done in the draft over the last handful of years. I was a big fan of Jordan Love coming out. I had a mid-first round grade on him. I pounded the table. This was a guy that had all the physical tools. It wasn't super consistent at Nevada. You had a big junior year, then a down year the following season. So I thought that what you saw on tape was someone who needed to be refined, who needed to grow as a quarterback, but had all the physical tools to make some unbelievable plays in the NFL and be a really talented NFL starting quarterback. Matt LaFleur has been able to mold him into more of a refined product, and you see the results. He was unbelievable down the stretch last year. Again, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavion Wicks, these are all receivers with really impressive overall games in college. Bring that to the Green Bay Packers, and I loved both tight ends they added. I loved Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave coming out last year. And then Zach Tom is another one who I was really high on. I thought he should have been a early to mid-day 2 draft pick. They get him a little bit later than that, and he's a super versatile offensive lineman that can play anywhere for you. Then you look at the defensive side of the ball. As I mentioned, you brought in Jeff Hafley to kind of transform this defense and get them into a more attacking style unit. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun to see with Kenny Clark, an unbelievably talented interior defensive lineman. Rashawn Gary has taken steps to become a Pro Bowl caliber edge rusher. You've got Preston Smith still playing well. Devontae Wyatt took a big step forward as a pass rusher in 2023. You've got Lucas Van Ness, who was a rookie last year, some decent depth up front. Overall, I think this defensive front is one of the strengths of the team and could be one of the stronger defensive fronts in the game with Jeff Hafley as the defensive coordinator. I think that what's going to be really interesting to see is how these linebackers kind of work. If they go into attack mode and just fly downhill, sideline to sideline, they could be really fun. None of them are like complete, it looks like, from the mental side of the game, but very good attacking linebackers in space. Quay Walker, obviously Edgerrin Cooper, and Tyron Hopper, 2 rookies. Great athleticism overall in that group, playmaking potential. It's going to be interesting to see how they fit. Looking at the secondary between Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, and Carrington Ballantyne, I think you have a good enough top 3 outside. Alexander is obviously a great cover corner. You have enough talent between Carrington Ballantyne and Eric Stokes to, I think, get the job done on the other side. And then in the nickel, you have Nixon, who is a decent player as well. What I really love about this secondary, though, what they've done at safety this year. You bring in Xavier McKinney, who's one of the best safeties in the game, bar none, one of the more complete safeties in the game, and you add Javon Bullard out of Georgia in the draft to that mix. Those are your 2 starters, it looks like right now. Bullard is a very complete player in his own right, so I love that fit. And then you go and add Keaton Oladapo, who was kind of, my guy at the safety position this year, so goes to show you just another couple guys I love for them in the draft. I've just been such a big fan of what they do. Oladapo is a bigger safety, more of a prototypical box type safety, but certainly someone who can play from a too high shell. He can cover tight ends and man coverage. He's got really good movement skills for such a strong, big player. He's got good length. I love what he brings. You also added Evan Williams in the draft. So I think that they've got a load of talent and I think a lot of potential in that safety room. And then you look at special teams, they're in very good hands with Rich Bisaccia. For me, this team could certainly win the NFC. And if they do, I think that they could give whoever comes out of the AFC, I think they could give them hell. Probably the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw these two teams go head to head last year. Obviously, that was not in the playoffs. I have them in the same tier as the Lions in the NFC. And in fact, I have them just ahead of their division rival, the Detroit Lions. I still have the 49ers on top of the conference, but the more I look at it, the more I like the Packers right behind the 49ers in the NFC. I believe the Packers have a better chance to win it all than the Lions do. And the reason I believe that is I think that there is more upside in the passing game, more versatility with the offense as a whole. And I know the Lions have an extremely versatile offense with all the different weapons they have when you look at their running backs, tight ends, receivers. But I ultimately think that Jordan Love just has a higher playmaking ceiling than a Jared Goff does. And I think he looks more like a quarterback that could take down a giant in the Kansas City Chiefs, could take down a giant in the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs. For them to reach their potential, I do think the defensive side of the ball is going to have to take some big steps forward under Jeff Hafley. And I think the linebacker play in particular, those players are going to have to be more consistent than we've seen from any of them. Quay Walker over the last couple years in Green Bay, Cooper, Hopper in college. These are playmakers, but not guys that have been super consistent. You're going to need to be able to get off the field on third down. You're going to need to be able to come up with big stops in the biggest of games. Can they do that? I think the linebackers are really going to have a major impact on the answer to that question. This is my number 2 team in the NFC. Again, same tier as Detroit, but just ahead of them, just a bit behind the 49ers. My number 5 overall team in the NFL right now. I think they've got a very good shot to make some noise, potentially reach the Super Bowl, and you never know what happens once you do. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you are a Packers fan, drop your comments below. Let me know what you think. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.